Okay, so here's some of the tools I'm going to use for this. Here's a Pilot G2, a Sharpie double tip pen, a Pentel rolling writer, and a Papermate flare. I'll probably use these two, but I don't know. And I change these all the time. These are some warm gray markers. That's a 20, 40, 60, and 80. And a Molotow paint marker. And a Signo, it's like a rolling ball white pen. It works good for thinner lines. And I don't go to the 8 that much. That's just this side of black, so I don't use it a whole lot. And I'm going to approach this just like a warm-up sketch I would do at the Natural History Museum. And I'm going to be using I think it's a Siberian woolly mammoth that's at Cal State Fullerton. So anytime you guys want to go over there, you can go over there and sketch it live, which is great. So I'm using this just like I would if we were at the museum. I'm just going to warm up with this. So I'm not warmed up yet, and I'm just going to start putting down some shapes. Now, I'll talk in a little bit about how you should probably approach it using all the big shapes first, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Going shape to shape like this, I'm really just measuring off. Once I put a shape down, I can just measure off that shape, and I kind of do that to sort of block the whole thing in. So in this case, it's a little bit of a shape to shape thing. That's really kind of an experience thing. So you probably want to go with the bigger shapes and then break the bigger shape into smaller shapes. But in this case, I'm relying on sort of measuring off each shape I put down. Really loosely, I'm just kind of checking myself. This is a loose sketch. This isn't, a finished drawing or anything. So it kind of has to look cool and be reasonably accurate. We've been working mostly in pencil, so you can see you don't really have to be worried about every line you put down. You can just hit another line, and what's eventually going to happen is I'm going to start punching the lines that I want to keep, and the other ones sort of disappear and give the drawing some vitality, and it actually looks really nice. And I'm going to keep this one nice and loose, and then I'll fatten up certain lines based on where the light is and things like that. And the stuff that I don't like will sort of disappear. So don't overthink too much going in, straight away with pen. Because a lot of people ask if I'm throwing down a pencil line first and that kind of thing. But I sort of sketch with pen exclusively for about 10 years for sketching. And it wasn't like an exercise or anything. It just, I liked pen. And I liked that I could just have a pen and nothing else. I didn't need an eraser, I didn't need anything. And I could just kind of go all day. And it got a very punchy line. And, the result of it was I just got very comfortable with ink. So all I'm trying to do here now is just get everything placed and get it reasonably proportioned and hopefully reasonably balanced. Turn your board when you need to get a good line. I'm not doing it too much in this because I don't want it to go out of frame, but make sure you're turning your board to get clean lines, especially with ellipses. And I'm going to add a little value in here with I think this is a 2. I usually start off really light, and this is going to kind of disappear a little bit, but I sort of like to step into it a little bit. And I'm also using this lighter value marker to just sort of block out where the shadows are going to be just in general before I sort of totally commit to them. Because this 2 is going to almost disappear. When I'm blocking the shadow in, I'm also thinking about separation and how I can get things to separate a light against a dark, if you want to just break it down to that. And I'm going to get something on the ground here, a little shadow value, just to kind of ground it. I'll also use a fat line where the foot hits the ground or meets the ground, or things, meet the ground, to sort of ground them that way also. Now I got some value in there, so I'm going to come in here and just pop some lighter values with the white pencil. So you're using the tone paper as your mid-ground and just going darker, lighter. And this is just for ground texture, some leaves, rocks, stuff like that. And I'm using the fat side of the Sharpie now to just punch lines and start, trying to make things pop with some thicker lines. And I'm always trying to think about how that line goes down, how if it goes thin to thick and things like that, because that just helps it. It'll pop it and it just makes it look a little more artistic and nice. And that fatter line is showing where the light is. You can see I put a light to the upper left. So everything going away from it's going to get a little thicker. But I'm also using it to separate. I want to talk a little bit about that idea of how I'm seeing this. You really should put down the big shapes first at this stage. So this is kind of how I look at it if I was looking at it overall. So head shape. And I need to get the barrel, that rollover barrel of the rib cage in there actually is a big shape. And then I can break it down. So the rib cage is just sort of this rolled piece of paper, and then I can just break up the ribs inside of that. So I'm always looking at those shapes, and I can break them down, and then I also know where to place that shoulder blade once I have that in there in relation to the head. So I'm looking at that and where it places in the rib cage. Where's the shoulder blade in relation to the top, bottom, back, front? You know, I'm using all these things to place things. So inside the rib cage, that'd be a secondary shape. Big to small, always. I'm just going to put a quick little graphic behind it. I always keep a roll of tape in my bag. Usually it's drafting tape. This is just some tape that I found. I don't know where I got it. So I always take the tack off of it just to make sure. I just tap it on my clothes and just take some of it off. I'm going in with a white paint marker here and just tapping a little bit of specularity on his tusks. The rest of it's pretty textured and absorbent, doesn't get that much specularity. The signo's thinner, so there's little facets on the on the bones that'll will kind of catch light and catch a little specularity. So I just kind of tap a few in. And I like to put notes on the page because what I'm kind of talking about here is filling out a page where it looks pleasing or it looks good. So you're thinking about how you're composing your page. And to me, like little notes and things like that kind of add to that graphic quality, and it's informational. So sometimes on these pages I'll do a little detail, like I want something in this corner, so I'll just, if there's something interesting about the foot or the leg assembly or whatever, I'll put a little call out of it and put some notes next to it about it. And it helps, again, it helps me fill out the page graphically in a nice way. Eats up shape where I want it to be. I'm just going to dance over this a little bit. I'm just going to use this dish to make a little graphic. A lot of times I'll just use a cup or something if I don't have something like this. I'm just going to try a little radiating pattern. Normally I'd be turning the board to do this so I could get the radiating pattern just right, but I don't want it to go out of frame. So I've got an empty space here, so I'm just going to throw in a side view of the skull, and that'll, again, put something graphically on the page.
again, I'm going to highlight a couple of these little tiny facets that kind of catch a little bit of specularity. So I'm just kind of just hitting it here and there to kind of show that a little bit. I'm going to go in and punch my line a little bit. You can see the lights to the upper left, that little corner graphic up there. So everything away from that I'm going to get a little heavier on. I'm going to put a white containment line around this. It's just another thing that can help pop it off the page. You got to be careful with that because it can actually flatten your drawing out if the drawing's not sort of dimensional enough. And also you got to be careful. Right now I'm using a Prisma. Sometimes people go in with a white paint marker and that can look really cool too, but sometimes it sort of overwhelms it. It's really just to sort of pop it off the page a little bit. I'm going to put a little graphic behind it. This time I'll go with a gray marker instead of the white pencil. Now, also what you're using this for is to sort of group things. So if I had 2 or 3 elements on this page, I could use this graphic to sort of tie all of them together. I'd put that graphic behind the 3 of them and they would all group together. Then I could have a general call out for all 3 of those things and it's easy to read the page. I'll give the whole thing a title, a little heavier font. And that's good for now. The rest of it we'll just go over in class.